Greetings, friends. This is Soul with another episode of Warcraft Weekly, the show that takes the controversy and drama of one of MMO's most storied games and doesn't take it very seriously. We begin this week's news with the start of Phase 2 of Burning Crusade Classic on September 15th at roughly 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time. It's only important to note that because the two new old raids, Serpent Shrine Cavern and the Eye, were crushed in less than 2 hours. Once again, absolutely no one should be surprised by this despite the encounters being in a so-called pre-nerf state. Even if we don't consider the year's worth of experience that makes encounters like these seem trivial, we've also got to consider that Phases 1 and 2 of TBC Classic are not faithful recreations of the original TBC experience. What we're seeing here are some of the top teams making a sport out of a speedrunning classic, and we should be used to this by now. That's fair, but it's a bit unusual to see SSC and TK be available a few months into TBC Classic when it was available at launch in the original release. I wonder how player behavior would be if that were the case, if we had the original release. Like, maybe at the very top it wouldn't be so different, but elsewhere I wonder if the experience would be more genuine, and by that I mean kind of janky. I mean, yes, we'd have our day one players, but also we'd have guilds who are progressing through SSC and TK, while newer players will be struggling to get whatever gear they can get so they can start Karazhan, like that was us, woohoo! But as much as we want to joke about how Classic is easy and it's all Blizzard's fault, just like World First Raiders and Shadowlands, their experience is just theirs. A lot of us just like to comment through their experiences as if it's everyone's experiences, and it's not. By the time this video is out, a few hundred guilds will have cleared Tier 5 content, but so many more teams who aren't as serious will be chugging along in their own little world, not caring one bit about what people in social media are saying, which is the weird way of turning this over to you folks, but I would love to get your views on how you think the WoW team is handling the Classic experience so far. Like, are they shooting themselves in the foot by not adding some sort of added tuning or challenges for today's more sophisticated players? Should the release schedule have replicated the original experience, or any other thoughts that you might have? Let us know. And now let's talk about patch 915 and how awesome it is, with so many good changes and additions, and yet in typical Blizzard fashion, it's all literally ruined because they took my best girl Sally, yeah, I named her Sally, and they defaced her with this perfectly fine looking woman here. This is not news. Wowhead and all their responsibility, I guess, had to bring up the fact that assets were changed in the latest PTR build this week, even pointing out that if it weren't for data mining, this change could have easily gone unnoticed by players unless you, I don't know, you visit Sally every day and you talk to her. Seriously, fellas, ladies, it's 2021. If you want to get your parasocial relationships, we've got OnlyFans and Twitch and everything. Please expand your horizons. Anyway, there's anger and speculation over why these changes were made and what else this could mean in light of the ongoing Blizzard lawsuit and the efforts at making the studio and WoW a safer place. From kowtowing to China, to distracting us from what little traction there is with the Blizzard lawsuit, to paranoia that Blizzard is de-sexing WoW and going after sexy transmog next, I'm gonna offer to you folks at home and elsewhere two very boring but pretty plausible explanations. One, a developer or artist saw these and thought, hey, you know what? I could whip something up better, and they did, and it was such a minor thing that no one in the approval process saw a reason to say no. Or two, there might be an old story behind these paintings. Maybe these original assets have something to do with someone either involved with the Blizzard lawsuit or was part of the culture problem inside of the studio. These, like renaming Makasbi to Eradath, they can't be hotfixed, so this is just another change that has to wait for a client-side patch. For all we know, Alex Cosby himself drew these, or it's a characterization of one of his old EverQuest characters, whatever. If we knew the history behind this, would our tune change? Maybe. But are we obligated to be informed? Like, do we want Blizzard to do some form of virtue signaling, like every time, pointing out every little change that they made, like, hey, look at us, dude, look at how much we've changed. Last thing on this, and a small effort to address the slippery slope fears, these paintings, along with other assets, are an expression of the world of Warcraft. These are in pretty obscure places without a lot of foot traffic, but they're there, and if Blizzard wants to change how the world is presented, that's up to them, just like how reacting to them is up to us. The same logic, though, applies to us. If we want to express our characters in sexier ways with the assets that we are provided with, I have a feeling Blizzard is perfectly fine with leaving that control up to us as long as the terms of service aren't broken. If China really is a factor, I can easily see Blizzard doing what they've done with gore and skeletons and other things in Western clients that are scrubbed away or edited in Chinese clients. In fact, I could actually see the the opposite. I could see Blizzard giving us more control and make it so that characters can wear either the male or the female version of some transmog if it seems to, at least fit right. Now that sounds controversial, but is it really? It's your character after all. We dress cows and fox people and wolf people, but oh dude, a female cow in male clothing? That is the sort of line we want to draw? But for now, you own the conversation. What are your thoughts on this? Like, do you think this is a big deal as some say it is? Is this Blizzard just cleaning up more of what the old guard left behind? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. So now let's really dive into patch 9.15 and address some of your burning questions. And if I missed anything, I'm sure I missed a bunch of stuff. Feel free to ask in a comment and I will try to fill you in. If I get a lot of questions, I'll make a separate video to answer all of them because as always, we're all trying to help each other out. Starting with Timewalking, the Timewalking vendor is hanging out in Legion Dalaran and sells an array of awesome stuff like a mount and a plate transmog ensemble and a sword that's more like a glaive and the Aegis of Agrimar. The grand total for that goes for a little over 10,000 Time Warp badges, so start saving. Timewalking Mythic Plus is also finally testable this week. Since I'm a Mythic Plus wussy, I can only do a little bit of surface testing, but here's what we learned so far, knowing that things can change over the next couple of weeks. Even though this is Timewalking, your level does not change. The dungeon scales up as opposed to your character scaling down, which makes some sense considering Mythic Plus is max level content. Since we're not technically in Shadowlands content, the Heart of Azeroth does seem to work, which for some would be highly advantageous thanks to scaling essences like the Vision of Perfection. Again though, your level is not changed, so the Ash Ketchum Cloak or whatever it's called is not going to activate. The bonus affix in Legion Timewalking is called Infernal, where you see a clickable beacon sort of thing that summons a powerful mob that summons numerous little adds that you just kill and you soak stuff. I haven't tested this myself, so I'm not quite sure what the big thing about this affix is. Either you're gonna pull it separately from the boss, or you fight both the boss and these adds simultaneously for some added challenge and maybe saving some time. I guess in this case, Blizzard's going for a straightforward level 10 affix that is future-proofed against whatever crazy borrowed power that we deal with in future expansions. Whatever the case though, it seems like it could be fun just for the sake of using the good old Heart of Azeroth again, but we're gonna see how this looks as we move from build to build. In what's a surprise to like nobody, it looks like Blizzard is planning to eventually make all of those mounts that were entered into that popularity contest set a while back where we voted for that big ass tree mount to be given to everyone who purchased Shadowlands. One is coming, and by completing all of the Mage Tower challenges during Legion Timewalking, players will be awarded with the Soaring Spell Tome, one of the entries. Reactions as usual have been mixed, like okay cool, there's like this special achievement for having completed all of the challenges. And it's also not so cool, like what about those of us who are only proficient with a number of classes or roles? Is this mount being denied to me? And I'm gonna do my usual devil's advocate thing where nobody likes me. Oh well. The way I see it, yeah, you're being presented with a very special challenge to obtain a special mount. It's evergreen content. Like, it might be on a really awful rotation, I'll have more on that later, but it is perfectly accessible. It's not on the shop, or at least this mount isn't on the shop, like who knows what's gonna happen to the others. It is within your reach with a little bit of elbow grease, and to my memory, this is the first mount of its kind that requires a level of skill and proficiency with multiple classes and roles, and frankly, people have been asking for something like this. Like they'll be like, oh, I want an achievement or something where I complete all 36 challenges across all of the specs and I want to get something special for it. This mount is only asking for like 7. On the flip side, there's that feeling that you can't have something because you don't participate in the game the same way as others. This is different from, say, getting those mythic mounts from raids because at least later you can slowly farm them up. It's different from getting those PvP mounts and titles because you're just not that good enough in arenas. It's different from the class exclusive mounts from Legion because they're class exclusive. Like, people who are motivated to get those class mounts are motivated to get them for both their collections and their particular characters, since those are the ones that can use them. That investment is there. The Mage Tower challenges are different because essentially I might be making throwaway characters just for the sake of a mount. So there is a question of if this is good design. So how about your take on this? I'm really curious. One question on a lot of people's minds, especially thanks to the Mage Tower, is that for all the good that's coming with Legion Timewalking, it sure sucks that Timewalking still only happens once every 4 weeks, meaning Legion Timewalking will only come around once every 6 months. Consider though that before TBC Classic released, Blizzard flipped a switch and activated TBC Timewalking to celebrate. There's a reasonable chance that shortly after the 9.15 patch, Blizzard will just hit us with Legion Timewalking off of schedule schedule for that promised 2-week period. Outside of those situations though, yeah, it's gonna be like once every 6 months, twice a year, 4 times in a regular expansion period. That hella sucks. And that goes for all the other time walking events. Like, it's pretty much a nerf to all of time walking. It might not be a big deal for you wrath baby, but some people started playing in the Battle for Azeroth. I know, that's like when the game was actually good. I know I'm repeating myself, but this is still a subject worth discussing. Like, I would want them to consider nerfing that 4-week gap down to like 1 or 2 weeks. Consider having multiple time walking events concurrently even. I don't see a huge downside to either or even both, but what do you folks think? And since we're kind of on the subject of Mythic Plus, there were some huge and welcome quality of life nerfs that will still keep it pretty challenging. First off, bolstering is no longer a permanently stacking buff on mobs. It now only lasts for 20 seconds, as long as, of course, a mob death doesn't refresh the duration. That, by the way, is from testing, and anything else that you've seen in Wowhead comments or anywhere else is basically wrong. My opinion though, bolstering isn't so much difficult as it is like frustrating and punishing. Like, it messes with player behavior with constant target switching, and with this change, it's still a really good idea to consider high health and hard-hitting mobs, but the responsibility shifts a little bit more towards the tanks and the healers who are dealing with bursts of higher damage. Here's what I can see happening in some cases. Like, we're probably going to see a pack of small mobs and one big mob. Players blow up the whole pack and that one mob gets all crazy for 20 seconds. So what do? The best move is probably to just slow or stun that mob and move on to the next pack, because by the time the mob catches up, the bolster effect should be gone and ready to get mowed down with everyone else. So the next few weeks on the PTR should be really interesting. We're going to see some big changes on how players handle bolstering and probably more tuning to adjust to this. Necrotic is also getting a sizable nerf too, with its duration being reduced from 9 seconds to a mere 6. Like, it's very straightforward. It's the game telling us that our current habits of handling necrotic don't really need to change. Tanks just have it that much easier with handling it. There's been lots of mixed feedback on this, on how it could have been handled, and truth be told, yeah, there could have been a lot of ways that necrotic could have been nerfed. Again, this just happens to be a straightforward and tunable solution. Like, for example, here's an idea. I would think it'd be cool if, for the first few seconds of entering combat, mobs didn't apply stacks of necrotic. This will let the tank get sufficient aggro or positioning before they need to run their asses off like a scared little puppy. Another idea, how about capping necrotic stacks and adjusting the healing reduction and damage over time to still feel painful but not soul crushing. That said, I'm still happy with the incoming change. I'm glad it's still being worked on. Finally, Raging got another nerf from a bonus 75% to damage down to 50%. Now, I don't play ridiculously high keys, which is what I think this nerf is targeted for, so I think for the majority of folks this isn't a big deal at all, but for people who run 20s and higher, can't hurt. And there are more buffs and quality of life perks coming in this patch that I've got to kind of speed through them, so let's go. Korthia Research is getting the anima treatment with lots of buffs and perks, and even an account-wide item for your main and alts to get more relic fragments and reputation faster. There's the before mentioned cosmetic options for High Mountain Tauren that are now testable. More abilities are coming off the AoE target cap, or they're changing from a target of cap of 5 all the way up to 8. Players who completed a Covenant campaign can now see that their alts can join said Covenant and have an opportunity to immediately recruit their second and third soulbind shortly after joining. It makes me wonder if the campaign skips, as mentioned before, will still come to the patch between this and the instant skip to Renown 40, but we've still got weeks to go to find out. Players with a PvP rating of 1600 and or a Mythic Plus rating of 1500 can buy an account-wide loot box that gives Mythic Plus or Conquest gear. It's a nice dump for extra resources. Grateful offerings will now drop from Covenant Callings depending on the upgrade level of your anima conductor. And finally, the ignore option works across an entire WoW account. And all of this stuff, this is all news from just this week. Boo-hoo, I'm sure some would say. This is Blizzard being desperate so they can get my sub back. But you know what? I think I could come to like this desperate Blizzard. And if any of those developers are watching this and they're not, they're probably thinking to themselves, nah, I wouldn't say that we're like being desperate. And if you know what, if that's the case, good, because then everyone's happy. And that's the show. This week, for me at least, has been one of the better weeks in gaming that I've had in a while. The Tales of Arise playthrough has been a lot of fun with, you know, a spattering of people watching me plug away at it with some really close and intense encounters, and it's just a crazy game. I love it. Like I come into these fights prepared and I leave battered and broken from resupplying, and I actually like that feeling. It feels hard and it's fulfilling when I still manage to win. It's gonna be a while before I do a full review on this game, but here's a spoiler. Like, unless you're a big fan of this or other Tales series, then you don't want to spend $60 on a game. But if you are a fan, dude, what are you waiting for? Jump on in. It wasn't just Tales though. This week's WoW experience was especially fulfilling after seeing the team pull through and smash even more heroic bosses. We finally climbed the wall that was actually that Soul Render Garrosh guy, and we crushed it on Painsmith. That was a much easier boss than Soul Render, but overall it was a lot more fun because we didn't feel dependent on a specific class mechanic like Death Grip to make the fight manageable. And then we got Guardian down because it was, you know, it was just Guardian. It wasn't so bad, but still intense. And I'm pretty proud of my team. They're never gonna hear me say that to them directly, but they all came through. Even the ones who died early. Like, I usually say in hindsight that whatever contribution that they made, it got us towards those kills. Meanwhile, 915 is coming whenever it comes, but before that, Diablo 2 Resurrected is coming out like next week. New World, which I'm gonna give a second shot at just a few days later. October is just gonna be pretty busy between those games with World of Warcraft and probably more Tales of Arise, maybe some indie games that might come our way, and then later in November, I predict that by then we'll get 915 to enjoy, the Final Fantasy XIV expansion Endwalker, which I'm gonna hop back in for. It's a lot to be stoked over, and I would love to have you join me for some gaming and some smack talk, and of course, a lot of coffee with our talks every Tuesday through Thursday, going from 8:30 a.m. Pacific. There we go. So I hope you join me by subscribing to the channel, and of course, liking the video or visiting the stream. And if you're feeling extra generous, join the Patreon family. I'll shamelessly point out that it has been a while since I've welcomed more folks to the club, and that is totally okay. I'm just reminding you all at home and elsewhere that your kindness, whether it's real monies or your energy, your kind words, or even your challenges to some of my silly opinions, all of that is what makes this channel uniquely ours. So thanks for coming. And don't forget to share your thoughts with comments and responses, and we will see you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.
That's a good feel.
And watch No Loot.
Damn rogues. Taking my
Yeah, No
nitrous
Loot.
butt.
Fuck yes. They're my favorite.
God damn, bro. Tell us how you really feel.
I feel your pain, Soul. I feel your pain.
Was that loud? I guess. Okay.
Yes. So
Okay.
Let's to Painsmith.
All right. One shot pain spell. Let's do it.
mhm.